welcome back to the TheEngiNerdLife podcast powered by Kahua. This is a show about the future of construction without all the fancy buzzwords. Instead, we're trying to have honest, human, and practical conversations about what's working, what might not be working, and what we're all still trying to figure out. So in each episode, we sit down with someone who has a unique superpower that they're using to make the industry better. And today it's kind of a cool thing. I'm joined by a woman that's behind a bulletin board that in Indiana I posted a picture with, and that post kind of went somewhat viral. But Kate Cinnamo is the executive director of Explore the Trades. And she lives in that tension really that we haven't fully resolved yet in construction. The fact that we desperately need people, yet we haven't really made the path compelling enough to attract them. But Kate's superpower is connecting that purpose to the next generation of builder in a way that draws them in. So Kate, it's such a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's really crazy because like when I was in the high school, it's funny story. Like I see this bulletin board, right? And I tell my wife, honey, you've got to take my picture with this bulletin board. And she's just rolling her eyes like, what is going on? And I was like, no, this is really cool because all I do is promote construction in the trades and someone else is doing it. So Kate, when you're working to do that, when you're trying to connect educators, contractors, parents, students in a way that helps them all feel understood, like what led you to this? What was it that you saw this and you were like, I want to do that. I want to make a difference in the trades.
Yeah, that's a big question, AJ. So my origin story, if you will, coming to this position in this organization. So I've been in this role for 9 years. And prior to me coming into the trades industry, I worked in the senior housing and healthcare industry for over 10 years. And in that sector, I worked with volunteers. I did community relations. I did grants management for a couple different organizations and had, one of those days at work where everybody's had it, where you just like, okay, now what, right? Like I've done what I wanted to do here. Now what? And so I found this job description on LinkedIn. I interviewed and here I am. So I don't have a background in the trades. My family doesn't have a background in the trades. My close network of friends, not in the trades, right? And you read this job description and you think, okay, so this organization gets people into the plumbing, HVAC, and electrical trades. Okay, that seems like a 180. That seems interesting. So let me do that. And I think what's interesting is I feel like my awareness and journey into the trades in this role mirrors that of a lot of people where I didn't really intend on it, sort of fell into it. I'm learning from scratch like so many other people. And so when our team came up with the concept for these posters that you found right out in the wild, which is for those listening and see the photo, this is like full circle moment, right? Like this is what we want to have happen. The concept behind those posters was we've had a lot of, at that time in 2021, we had a lot of conversations with contractors who would call and say, hey, I'm going to a career fair next week. What do you have that I can use? Simultaneously, we're having conversations and questions from teachers and school counselors who are saying, I know that not all of my students are meant to go to college or will go to college. And I know that the trades would be good for them. I just don't know enough about that industry to have that conversation. Okay, so how can we how can we fulfill that information need for both sides of the coin? And we wanted to, in those posters, create a continuum that can show people, yep, once you start your apprenticeship and you're out in the field, here's a whole host of other leadership roles that you could take, right? As a plumber, as an HVAC technician, as an electrician. So AJ, that's the summary. That's how we came up with those kits. And here's where we are 5 years later. We've had those posters in front of more than 1 million students. We have them in over 3,200 school districts around the country. So what started as an experiment has now led us this far, which is really exciting. So that's a long story that I thought would be short, but it wasn't really that short. But I wanted to get
No,
all those details in.
that's perfect. So like when you think about those posters
Yeah.
and all of the different messages that are made up within those posters, is there
Yeah.
one specifically where you're like, this one message or this note that we built in here was specifically tailored because skilled trades aren't seen clearly by the outside world? Like, this is what we wanted to prove.
Sure. So I have two answers to that question. The first one, one of the main conferences where we bring these posters is to the National School Counselor Association event every year. The organization itself is called ASCA. And there are always 2 points that we hear. Wow, I didn't know tradespeople made that much money. That's more than I make, and I have a master's degree. Like that's a common sentiment that's shared. Additionally to that, when we hear students or parents, we hear their feedback after looking at it is, I didn't know that I could own my own business. Because on that
Yeah,
continuum
yeah.
at the pinnacle, right? There's that entrepreneurial spirit of, okay, I could own my own business one day. So I think it's a realization of the money that can be made, but then also what does that career journey look like? And I think when you share people, you take them into the business, there's a lot of leadership there as well. So I think it's just an awareness of, I didn't know that if I could be a plumber, I didn't know there was more than that. I didn't know that there was more than working in the field.
Right. So it's interesting, right? We've talked about the posters a little bit and kind of the
Yeah,
message that they're out there to promote. Let's take a step back because I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that are like, I love construction. I've been in it the whole time, unlike Kate, who
right.
kind of came across it.
Yeah,
And I'd love to promote it. So how did you figure out that you could be good at promoting the trades, even though you didn't come up through them? Like, what was it? What was the
sure.
moment that you were like, you know what? I could actually do this. I can connect people to the trades in a way that resonates.
So I, so what I've learned about myself. So my husband and I have 2 children. We have a son and a daughter, and they're both in middle school. So they have the majority of their lives that they can remember. I have done this for work. Mom goes to work
Mm.
and she works for Explore the Trades. And what I think is so interesting as the kids have gotten older, it's almost like this work becomes a little bit more personal because
Ah, yeah.
as my kids get older, and you know this, right? As your kids get older, you can see they where their aptitude shines. And with our son, it becomes more personal because he doesn't like to sit in a classroom all day and he's busy and he wants to learn hands-on. So I think for me, it's telling the story and relating it to say, I know that there's a bunch of kids out there and young adults and adults looking for a second career of here's where we can make it valuable. And because I think the more, there's the personal side, but as I've gotten to know the people who work in the trades and understand the business, you and I have we've had the luxury of learning about it and seeing about it. And it's not just this
Hmm.
forgotten thing that a lot of people have forgotten about. So I think it's a way of bringing it closer to home for a lot of kids. I think it's making, shining the light on those people who work in the trades and really can help showcase the value of what they bring. The reason we're a first world country is because of all these tradespeople who make life comfortable for us, right?
Exactly.
So
Yep.
so I didn't give you a straight answer. I gave you a multi answer in this.
And that's okay.
Yeah,
So let's look at the flip side then for a second,
yeah,
because like Explore the Trades isn't the only organization out
No?
there that's trying to promote construction,
Right.
and some do well, some don't. When you see people trying to promote the trades, is there something that you often see them get wrong in their attempt?
I I I I don't know that it's wrong because some of our information we have it too, right? Like look at all the money that you can make. And don't get me wrong, that's an important part of the equation, but it's not the only piece of the equation. I mean, we could all make a lot more money if we chose a different career. So I think it's, and especially since our work is so tailored towards that kindergarten through 12th grade, right? Where
Mhm.
you have the luxury of their brains really um they're curious. So how can we enhance that curiosity? I think it's really going a little bit further to say, hey, when you're in high school and you're taking chemistry, this is how you can use chemistry in all of these different lines of work. Or, yes,
Mm.
I know you think geometry, when am I ever going to be measuring angles, right? Well, this is when you do that. So I think it's really making it a tangible story for them. Yes, you can make a lot of money more than what you make at Starbucks or the grocery store, as a cashier, but what does that mean? What do you mean I can use my phone or my device to help fix a water heater? Well, that's pretty cool. So what are they doing now that we can harness that story to?
So, when you're trying to have that conversation and trying to harness those stories,
Yeah.
is there something that changes when kids go from just hearing about the trades to, like, actually seeing themselves in the trades? Like, how do
Yes.
you position them in the story?
Sure. So story that I can share is one of the programs that we have at Explore the Trades is in partnership with Ferguson, which is a North American HVAC and plumbing distributor. And together we created a skills lab program, meaning with Ferguson's support, every year we are able to distribute and award equipment grants to middle schools and high schools around the country so that they can now either update or start a brand new plumbing or HVAC course as part of their curriculum, which is really exciting. Side note, housekeeping, we'll be announcing our fifth annual crop of recipients on May 6th, which is National
Ooh.
Skilled Trades Day. So, depending on when people are listening, we'll have all of those posted on our website. So, let me use that to set context for my story. One of the recipient schools that we awarded 2 years ago is an elementary and middle school out in Philadelphia, and it's called Mayfair School. And the instructor, his name is Evan Jarrett, and he has an amazing following on LinkedIn. So I would encourage the listeners to go check him out. But we were able to go visit the classroom and to see, the equipment in action and the students in action. And the couple classes we got to see, we saw fourth graders all the way through eighth graders, brazing copper pipe, soldering. And we're talking about fourth graders, which as someone who's had fourth graders, that is
Yeah.
very trusting to have
I
them
was
do
thinking the
that.
same thing with my kids. I was like, I don't know that I'd do
Yes.
that.
Yes. But what was so what was so amazing about that visit is you get to see them in action and you get to see these kids show me how how to do it, right? Like with the PPE and the process and the safety and here's what you have to do and to see the confidence that they now have and that Mr. Jarrett has instilled in them. You can't tell a better story than that. You can't tell that story in words, or me even describing it does not do it justice, but to see them be able to do that and know that they can do that forever now is is very amazing. It's amazing. Plain and simple.
So, like, that's the really cool, really exciting side
Yeah.
of the coin.
Yeah.
But as we kind of set it up at the beginning, there's a unique tension in here, right?
There is.
Because construction is also intensely difficult
Right?
and the industry is hard.
Yeah.
So, where do you often get the most pushback against your message from people who know those facts to be true?
Right. So I think it's a difficult conversation about a couple different things depending on who you're talking to. If I'm in front of parents or if I've had the conversation with them, it's sort of the push pull of, yeah, these are really valuable careers and people should do them, but not my child, right?
Yeah,
My
there it
child's going to
is.
go to college. So So there's that, right? I think there's the perception issue. I think for schools, it's the awareness. I just don't know sometimes if they're ready to make that investment because investing in these classes is not cheap, right?
Nope.
And it's really hard to find an instructor. I think that's a huge barrier for a lot of schools at this point. So if you can get them on board, that's great, but that's sort of pushing it up the mountain a little bit. The third thing is when we're talking to the industry, when we're talking to contractors, I still think there's some hesitancy on, well, why should I invest my time going to a school, middle school, even high school, when I can't hire them? I needed a technician, 30 days ago. I need a technician now. And
Right.
I can't get that here. So I think it's the retraining of the recruiting dynamic to say, yeah, but you get in front of them now, you don't know who that's going to resonate with. So by the time they're 18, they're going to call you, right? So it's almost the persuasion piece to say, yeah, but this is a long game. This is not meant to be a
Yeah.
short game, and it's not a short game anymore. I mean, you really have to plant the seed now.
So, let's expand on that a little bit. Like, do you see right now or currently still a gap between how we as an industry are talking about opportunity, but how we're showing up for the people when it comes time to do it?
Sure. I so from what we've seen, I think the desire and the involvement has greatly increased over the last 5 years. And I think it helps when there are federal dollars now earmarked and invested in technical education. So that's growing, which I think helps the conversation a lot. I think that so so to the point about the gap, right, of what we're saying and how we're showing up, I think that spectrum is narrowing, right? I think that the companies who say, "Yep, I'm showing up and I'm going to get involved and this is how I'm going to do it." There's a lot of ways to get involved, and I think that a lot of companies are ready to take the small steps in order to see if they can do the big stuff. You know what I mean? I think
Mm-hmm.
it's okay, I can invest a couple hours to do this career fair. Or I could invest in having the students out to the shop for a tour. That the gap of matching actions with words is becoming more narrow, which is good. Because I think for a while there was a lot of talk and maybe not a lot of action behind that. So
Right.
so I think that gap is a lot more narrow than what it used to be.
And that's good to hear because like everywhere we turn, right, we're bombarded with this idea of a labor shortage
Right. Right.
and it's plaguing construction. And it's obviously there's some truth to that. And
Yeah.
until the robots take over,
Right. Right.
we're gonna need people to fill the trades, right?
Yeah.
So, why do you think this message matters now more than it has ever before?
I think I think the message now is I think it's sort of hitting at the perfect storm. I think with the investment available for technical education, I think that's increasing. I think school districts around the country are realizing we can't do things the way we used to. And it's almost the permission to say we need to provide students with different ways of learning, because you can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. I think when you bring in higher education, because I know we've all seen articles about this quote unquote enrollment cliff that's
Mm-hmm.
coming upon us, right? So now colleges and universities are competing with the construction trades for people, and that I don't think they're used to that, quite honestly. And it's interesting to see what's happening at these institutions about how they're changing to make themselves even more valuable to students. So this was over the summer, last summer, but there was an article out about Brandeis University. Private liberal arts college was now investing in creating a second resume for students that would outline their career and internship skills and what they learned. So not only do you have a traditional course transcript, but now they were going to walk away with a career transcript. And I think that's
Interesting.
some pushback for students and who are carrying immense amounts of student loans, and families and the workforce saying, okay, well, this is a really sharp kid, but how will this translate in the field, right? In any career path. So I think it's really interesting that they can feel the pressure as to what the trades and other vocations are bringing. So it's just really interesting to see all of these things combine.
Yeah, and it's funny because like they can be super sharp kids
Yeah.
and still college isn't for them, right? Like
Oh,
they can be really,
100%.
really smart,
Yep.
but to your point, they're hands on. They want to be among people. They don't want to, sit in
Yeah.
classrooms. Like it it has nothing to do with intelligence. And
No.
and
Right.
sometimes we just get wrapped around like construction's for the people not smart enough for college. No,
Nope.
that's not
Right.
it at all.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so like what's at stake for the industry at large from your point of view
hmm
if we don't introduce more people to construction?
Well, I think that labor shortage, I think that gap continues. And I can see where customers, whomever your customer might be, what does that look like for them? Right? I mean,
Oh, right.
no
Yeah.
no one wants to wait a week to have something fixed at home. Like I'm just thinking of a water heater. No one wants to be without hot
Hmm.
water for that long. So I think there's just there's those things. And then if we don't if we can't increase this outreach and getting people in, I think of all the students who are graduating, right? And so you're going to have this regenerative population of students graduating. They want to do this work. And if there isn't anything available, well, now we've lost them, right? Now
Right.
we've lost them to something that maybe isn't as engaging for them. And you can't help but think, well, what does that mean to communities around the country? What does it mean for those companies and employment and, keeping those communities thriving? I think there's a domino effect a lot. Yeah.
So the question is then, I mean, you've been doing this for a number of years now.
Yeah.
Are you seeing the momentum start to shift? Like, are we
Mhm.
getting closer? Are people starting to get it? Obviously, colleges are starting to fight back a little bit.
They are. Yeah.
Are students starting to get it? Are we seeing a change?
Oh, I think so. And this is just anecdotally, but in hearing from people that I know socially and through work around the country, you can see now where, using community and technical colleges as an example, I think people are surprised that these trades programs now have a waiting list, which I think catches
Mm-hmm.
people off guard. Like I want my son is interested in being an electrician, but the tech school has a waiting list of over 18 months. And so I think that people are getting it. I think young adults are getting it. And again, it's the push pull of, man, that's awesome that there's a waiting list. And now what do we do? Now how do
Right.
we serve and train those people who want to do it? and how do we keep them engaged until there's a spot open? So yeah, I do think I think it's caught on. I think we're seeing a really positive shift in this.
All right. So obviously, I could talk about this forever. I could keep asking you question after question. But one of the things that we like to do with each of these episodes is get real practical for people. Like,
Yep.
if I'm listening to this today and I wanted to help promote, like I want to get involved. I want to help change the perception.
Yeah.
What is one thing that I could do tomorrow to better promote construction to the masses?
Sure. So the easiest plug I have is on our website, which is explorethetrades.org. That's where you can request the set of posters that you saw
Oh,
in Indiana. So on our website, we have these posters available for free as a nonprofit. The financial support we get, we have the opportunity to turn this out into goods and materials that, for the benefit of the greater good. So these posters, we have them available in English, we have them available in Spanish, and we have a set exclusively for elementary kids. So think
nice.
kindergarten through fifth grade. And we've seen businesses take these to schools as sort of like an introductory gift, right? Like, hey, let us know if you need us, and here's some resources for the kids. We've had parents request them to take them to their kids' school. So that's just, I think, one easy piece to bring into your community.
So, what if I feel like I'm someone that doesn't have any influence, right? Like I'm just your average Joe, can't really get the word out. What can I do within my own circle, my own sphere
Sure.
that would make construction more visible or more viable?
Sure.
Because likely if I'm listening to this, I work in it
Right.
in some capacity. Yeah.
Right. I think I think it's exactly that, right? If I'm going out to dinner with some friends, and I've done this where I don't know, I don't know what you guys are interested in, but I just heard this podcast about XYZ. Or did you know, and talk about the state of construction or education. And, again, on our website, in addition to the posters, we have a whole host of other downloads and videos available just to sort of help tell the story, especially for students, of, hey, what you're learning now is directly applicable to what you could do in the trades. And it's interesting because socially, in our neighborhood and with our friends, it's interesting to hear them say, man, I needed my water heater fixed. Do you know how long it was going to take them to come out? So I think it just comes up in conversation, right? And how
Hmm.
can we help shine a light on that? Because everyone knows what it feels like to be a customer, and you can't have something fixed right away. So I try to bring it back to everyday life that we can all relate to.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you made the comment earlier, but it's worth repeating. Like, we are a first world country
Yeah.
because of the amenities that have been supplied by construction.
Right. Right.
And I think you told me the example once when we first met, like
Yeah.
just running water in general, right?
Yes. 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 The discovery of clean water. It obviously, the medical field has done wonders for the world, but with the advent of, you know, clean water many, 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 many years ago, how that has helped society. Just coming up with systems on how to clean the water. That's number one. I mean, there's your plumbing trade right there.
So the next time you drive past one of those construction sites where they got a big hole next to the road and you're just complaining because they're out in the way, instead stop and thank those people
That's
because
right.
you're healthy
That's
because
right.
of that
Because of
clean
them.
water.
That's right. That's right.
Oh man. Well, this has been absolutely wonderful, Kate. I really want to thank you for your time. And for connecting when the poster post went up there, and then we got introduced by Coleman to one
Yes.
another, and you were willing to connect. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation. And again, seeing that post on LinkedIn, it's kind of that, well, yes, that's the point, right? And there's Explore the Trades out in the wild doing exactly what we want it to do. So
Yep,
this was great.
that was this working.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
All right. Well, if this conversation resonated with you and you're also interested in promoting the trades, be sure to reach out to Explore the Trades, or just take one of the tips that Kate shared
Mhm.
and take it back with you today. Also, be sure to rate, subscribe, and share this with a friend if you found it interesting. But as always, remember that construction is cool, so be sure to go tell your friends. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.